Good morning, students. Welcome to our stress management presentation. I am Ms. Lizelle Miller. I'm the social worker at the Department of Student Services at NUST. My main responsibility in the department is to support, assist, and counsel students with emotional, social relationships, and any other challenges you might experience. My office is located on the main campus on the top floor where the SRC offices are. You are welcome to either email me or visit me at my office to make an appointment if you want to discuss any kind of challenges or even the presentation that is going to follow. My contact information will be displayed on the last slide. So you are welcome to contact me. You are also welcome to join our Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp channel, and YouTube channel. The links will be displayed at the end of the presentation. University is the first experience of you as a student of being an adult and having responsibility for your own life. When you were in school, your parents or guardians were responsible for you, and there was someone that told you what you had to do and when you had to do it. Now, you are at university and you are now responsible for your own life and your future. You can decide not to study or you can decide to study. Unfortunately, part of being an adult is dealing with your own problems and stress. As a student and at university, studies are very stressful and it is important from the beginning that you figure out how to deal with this stress, firstly, and secondly, also how to sometimes relax. So this is also part of the motivation why I do the stress management workshop, to give you some tips and ideas of stress management techniques and skills that you can build to not just help you through university, but also when you start working and through the rest of your life. The stress management presentation is divided into 6 parts. The main objectives of the stress management presentation are to inform students on what stress is and the symptoms of stress. I will also look at 3 main stress management strategies, the 5 stages of stress, and finally discuss some stress management techniques and skills. So let us start. Firstly, for us to continue, we first need to understand what stress is. Stress is the feeling of emotional and physical tension. Stress is your body's reaction to a challenge or a demand or a problem. So stress is not the problem you are experiencing, but the symptom of a problem or a challenge that you are struggling with. This means that one person might experience stress to a certain situation, where another person will not experience stress to the same situation. Stress is our reaction to an external event, meaning it is our interpretation of a situation and the consequent reaction. I always take the example of public speaking. For some people, public speaking is natural and they do not get nervous or anxious before making a speech. For another person, public speaking is a very scary and stressful event, and they will sometimes even get dizzy and nausea before appearing in front of a group of people. Meaning that what is stressful for one person is not necessarily stressful for another person. It is thus a very individual experience. To summarize, stress is the body's reaction to your interpretation of an event. So again, it is really about how you look at your problem and deal with your problem that will either prevent the stress or cause stress. Stress is part of everyday life, and you will experience stress at home, in your studies, and at your future work environment. Stress is in most cases a motivator or energizer and gets you to perform an act. But if stress continues for a long time, it can be harmful. Meaning, if you do not learn some stress management techniques, stress can be harmful to your emotional, social, and physical well-being. As mentioned in the previous slide, stress is a physical change that takes place in the body. There are two kinds of stress: acute stress and chronic stress. Acute stress is a short-term stress. For example, slamming on the brakes in traffic when a car stops in front of you, so your body reacts immediately to manage a dangerous situation. Acute stress is also a motivator where you might take up a new or exciting project. Chronic stress is stress over a longer period of time. This can include financial problems, unhappy family or intimate relationships, or challenges in your studies. If you do not learn to manage the stress associated with the demands of the world, this may lead to health problems. Stress can be measured by measuring the levels of stress-related hormones in your body. These hormones control your human behavior in response to a specific stress factor. But I do not really go into the biology of stress because I do not think this is important to know at this point. As discussed in the previous slide, you have acute stress as well as chronic stress. In this slide, we look at what kind of effects excessive stress can have on your body in the long term specifically. There are a few things that you can experience. A decreased immune system means you become ill very quickly, decreased metabolism, depression and hypertension, chronic fatigue, which means chronic tiredness, sleep deprivation, so you struggle to get to sleep, or your sleep is not restful. Stress can cause migraines, arthritis, and excessive hunger. So there are many effects that excessive stress can have on your body, especially in the long term. So it is important to be aware that if you start experiencing some of these symptoms, that you know you have stress and that you need to figure out what is stressing you out and how to deal with it. In the first few slides, we have looked at what stress is and what effects stress can have in the long term on your body. The question you need to ask yourself is, what is the situations, scenarios, or problems in your life that cause you stress? Basically, what are you stressed about? You need to figure out how you deal with the stress in your life. Do you have certain behavior or stress management strategies or techniques that you do in your life that help you manage your stress? Or are you just ignoring it and hoping it will go away? These are just a few questions that you can ask yourself. What are the monsters in my life? What are the things that I worry about? What are the things that I'm stressed about? Later in the presentation, we will look at triggers, which means the challenges in your life that might cause you stress. It is important to start with knowing what your triggers are before you start managing your stress. Our thoughts, feelings, behavior, and physiology are influenced by stress. We can detect certain things in ourselves that can indicate to us that we are experiencing stress. In this slide, I have just focused on a few things that is symptoms of stress. You can look at your own body, your feelings and behavior to evaluate whether you might be experiencing stress. Firstly, your feelings. Symptoms of stress will be feelings of anxiety, being fearful, irritable, or moody. I always remember that during exam time at university, everybody was moody and irritated. And this was due to the stress that we were experiencing during exams. Secondly, your thoughts. So you might experience thoughts of low self-esteem, fear of failure. So you are wondering whether you'll be able to pass the exam. You struggle to concentrate. You are forgetful. You worry about the future. And you get embarrassed easily. When you have things on your mind that you are worried about, you tend to be so focused on the worries that you struggle to focus or even study. We sometimes let these challenges overwhelm us and is scared that we will fail or will not be able to cope. Thirdly, your behavior. When you are experiencing stress because of a certain problem or challenge in your life, you might stutter, you cry easily, you are very impulsive, you just do things without thinking about it. Sometimes we increase our smoking or use of alcohol and drugs to deal with this stress. When you experience stress, you are sometimes more accident prone. So your mind is somewhere else. You lose your appetite or even you are eating more. These are all behavioral symptoms of stress that we are experiencing and we are not really managing it. Lastly, you might experience certain physiological symptoms of stress. This can include sweaty hands, increased heartbeat, trembling or nervous tics. You might tire easily and usually also experience problems with sleeping, so either oversleeping or not being able to sleep. You can have digestive problems like diarrhea or vomiting. Other symptoms might include headaches or pain in your body or your neck. And then the last one is being susceptible to illness. These are just a few symptoms that you might experience that shows to you that you are having stress and you are not really managing it. It is important at this point of the presentation to look at yourself and maybe identify whether you might be experiencing stress and not managing your stress. As individuals, we have 3 different strategies that we use to deal with stress and the management of our stress in challenging times. In the previous slide, we focused on the symptoms of stress meaning how our body, behavior, and emotions reacts to stress. In this slide, I will focus on 3 main stress management strategies that we use to cope with stress in our lives. The 3 strategies include action-oriented stress management strategy, emotionally oriented stress management strategy, and acceptance-oriented stress management strategy. The first strategy is the action-oriented stress management strategy. This strategy is where you confront the problem that you are facing and taking certain steps to change the situation and to manage the stress. You are proactive. You are experiencing stress due to exams, so you compile a study timetable, or you gather all the notes that you need for the exams, or you get old exam papers to help you with exam preparation, and you start studying for your exams. So this is the action-oriented stress management strategy. The second stress management strategy is the emotionally oriented strategy. This strategy is used where you change the way you interpret the situation on an emotional level. Meaning, you look at the situation in a different way. You might not like your lecturer, for example, of one of your modules that you are doing. You cannot drop the module. You cannot take action, but you can change the way you think of the lecturer. So you can interact with the lecturer, get to know them better, ask questions, and then you might find that you start having a connection with the lecturer. So this is really about changing the way you look at the situation. The third stress management strategy is the acceptance-oriented strategy, which means you focus just on surviving the situation and getting past it and moving on from the situation. In this situation, I use the example that someone close to you has passed away. You cannot change the fact that the person has passed away and the fact that you are feeling sad, so you cannot change your emotional response. You cannot change the situation. So what you do is you focus on getting through it and dealing with the emotions that you might be feeling, sharing your sadness with your friends, and eventually, with time, get over it and pass and look at the future. So these are the 3 stress management strategies that we usually use in situations where we experience stress. As individuals, we will always experience stress, and it is important to know what triggers you to experience stress. You are aware of what causes you to stress. You can develop a stress management plan. There are many different triggers, and each person experiences stress from a different situation. Let's look at a few stressors that you might experience as a student at university. I think most of you will identify with having an overwhelming workload and the feeling that you cannot manage the workload. You might feel there are not enough hours in the day to do everything that you have to do. So lack of time is in most cases also connected to workload. A trigger that I think most students experience also is finances. So most of our students struggle with managing their finances, but also with having enough money to pay for your studies and your basic needs. So if you are aware that this might be a stressor for you, you need to look at different strategies to manage your finances better, or even seek help from outside sources to assist you in managing your finances. We have many students that struggles with their own health or even the health of a family member that they must care for. This can put extra responsibility and pressure on you and your family. Romantic and or intimate relationships, friendships, or family members can also cause much stress in our lives. So in your community of people that you have, you might experience some stress as well. Lastly, exams are stressful to most students. I think all students struggle with exam stress, meaning how to prepare for exams, how to deal with the anxiety that is part of exams. It is important that before you work on certain skills to manage your stress, you need to also identify which of these situations give you stress. There might be other things that I've not mentioned here, but it's important to be aware of what and which things in your life cause you stress. There are five stages of stress that we go through if we experience stress. Alarm, stage 2 resistance, stage 3 possible recovery, stage 4 adaptation, and stage 5 burnout. In the next few slides, I will discuss each stage in more detail and explain how each stage works. The first stage is the alarm stage. This stage could also be called an acute stress response. It occurs after a circumstance has triggered you and you experience a fight or flight reaction when your heart rate and blood pressure increase and adrenaline is boosted. You suddenly realize that you have an assignment that you have to complete and hand in the next day, for example. At this stage, you may encounter the following physical signs: diluted pupils, so allowing more light to enter the eyes and improve vision; dry mouth, as the blood flow and saliva are decreased in the mouth and digestive system; sweating, so your body's attempt to cool you down; and a cool skin as blood flow moves towards your brain, eyes, ears, nose, arms, and legs. It moves away from the skin. So this is the physical signs that you are experiencing, that you are now in the alarm stage. The second stage is the resistance stage. Your body has the capacity to cope with a situation that is causing a stress reaction once you move into the resistance stage. The physical signs of your stress will become easier to cope with at this stage. Here, your body is trying to return to a healthy state by releasing anti-inflammatory hormones to calm and settle your body. The adverse effects of stress can become worse if the pressure continues. So if you don't deal with the stress or deal with the challenge. This means if the stress continues and you do not take the time to then recover, you may find yourself entering the last two stages of stress, adaptation and burnout. So you might decide that you do not have have enough time to complete an assignment, so you just ignore it and then your stress will increase. Or you decide and take action to go to the library and try to complete the assignment. As discussed in the previous slides, it is then important to take action to deal with the stressor. Following are some strategies you may employ to move through this stage. We have spoken about recognizing the source of the trigger, so that is the first thing you need to do. Try to pinpoint precisely what situation or circumstance are causing you to stress. Okay? The calm from the hormones should help you with thinking things through. So basically calming your thoughts and really looking at what is the problem and how should I deal with the problem. Do something about it. So deal with your stressor as positively and directly as you can. At the next slide, when we speak about recovery, I will give you some coping techniques or stress management techniques. And lastly, plan for a less stressed future. Think about how you can remedy your current situation and how you may prevent it or deal with it in a better way next time. So if you are, for instance, stressing about an assignment that you have to do and you didn't start early enough, in future you say, okay, what I need to do is I need to gave note to myself 2 weeks in advance so that I start working on the assignment. So this is how you kind of prevent yourself from having to deal with that stress again in the future. The third stage is coping or possible recovery. The most crucial stage is this one. It is about moving towards equilibrium and recovery. This could happen as a situation or circumstance completes itself. So you hand in your assignment and you can focus on other things now. Or for instance, a family issue is resolved, a long-term project finishes, or a busy period of exams comes to an end. So this is your possible recovery stage. You can even begin to experience recovery just by getting away from the problem for a time. Here are a few things you can do to start recovery, even if the offending situation isn't resolved. This is what stress management techniques are important. The first one, distraction, and it is about diverting your attention away from the problem. So maybe take a day off when you are studying to just do something that you enjoy. So this is distraction, it's just taking a breather. Second one is catharsis, and this is about expressing your emotions to maybe a friend or family member to reduce the tension and your feelings of stress. Thirdly, situation redefinition is about trying to see the problem in different ways. You can, for example, see the exams as an opportunity to show your lecturer what you have learned. Okay. Number 4 is direction. And direction is about thinking about the solution and gathering information. So you can decide to develop a study timetable and thus coming up with a plan to prepare you for an exam. Okay? So direction is really about thinking about the problem and coming up with solutions to resolve this problem. Number 5 is acceptance, and this is about realizing that you cannot change the situation. So you learn to accept it, and social support is very important in dealing with stressful situations. As you discuss your problem with a friend or family member, they can help you with the problem, and they sometimes also give you another insight into the problem that you might not have thought about. And it's also important to sometimes, in stressful situations, get professional help. Sometimes an outsider, someone that is objective, can also give you guidance in how to deal with stressful situation. Number 7 is using religious resources, and this is also very important in our community specifically. Sometimes a problem is really beyond our human capabilities, and then religion can give us some relief or peace of mind. The last way to enhance your possible recovery in a stressful situation is proactive coping. In this, you take efforts to improve your coping strategies and build your emotional and physical reserves to cope with stress. Later in the presentation, we will focus on these proactive coping strategies as well. Adaptation is the 4th stage. In stressful situations, you can either get out of it or adapt to the stressful situation. Adaptation might be the result of being helpless to change things. So you are kind of just accepting the situation. Unfortunately, this won't make things better. You are fixing yourself in a state of stress that will have long-term adverse effects on you. You will experience low energy, sleep issues, low self-esteem, and emotional instability will become your new normal. So this is when you adapt to the situation, and you really don't try to deal with the stress. If you find yourself in a stressful circumstance that you can't immediately do anything about, consider doing any of these things that I will mention to mitigate the long-term damage. Check in with yourself frequently. Ask yourself questions like, how am I doing right now, and can I handle this any better than I already am? Okay, so checking in with yourself. Be kind and gentle with yourself. You're dealing with a lot right now, so cut yourself some slack. So relax a bit, don't be too hard on yourself. Thirdly, consider possibilities that you may have overlooked before. Use tools like mindfulness and coaching to find peace and practice positive thinking patterns. So this is when you are in the adaptation stage, and you are trying to just get through the situation. Burnout is the last stage. And you probably have heard this word also a lot in stressful situations. If you cannot extricate yourself from stressful circumstances because you don't know how, or because you've unknowingly adapted to the situation, you are in danger of burnout. Signs of burnout is extreme exhaustion, emotionally drained, negativity, cynicism, catastrophic thoughts, and detachment. And this is sometimes that I see students coming into my office. They are depressed, they are sad, they are exhausted, they have thoughts of suicide. So this is when you are at the burnout stage. because you haven't taken any kind of steps to manage the situation and the stress. These are just a few strategies that I would recommend to help you with this burnout. Slow your thinking and your body. Find a way to take breaks from all the thinking, worrying, and physical tension. Even if you can just get away in a quiet place for only 10 minutes, it can be beneficial, and especially using meditation. Reconsider your goals and your priorities. So think about, what have you made your goals and your priorities? Maybe your goals need to be reevaluated and changed. Decide what you really want from your work and your life. So all this stress that you are feeling, the burnout, the exhaustion, is it really worth it? And then set new and more reasonable goals. And then, very, very important, rest, recover, and reward. As you come through every difficult situation, be generous with yourself. Be proud of what you have accomplished. Get all the rest you need to facilitate recovery. And when it's all over, reward yourself for getting through a difficult situation. Celebrate every small win and success. And this is always that I say to students, even if you don't experience huge stress, celebrate when you do well. As physicians, we often don't even take a minute before we are on the next task or goal. In the last two slides, I will be focusing on stress management techniques and skills that you can teach yourself and that you can do daily to improve your emotional, physical, social, and spiritual well-being and resources so that you can deal with the daily stress of life. There are many stress management techniques, but I will only focus on a few. It is important for you to look at these techniques and possibly identify a few that you can do to manage your stress. I also recommend that you do not do these techniques only when you are stressed, but that it should be done daily and should become part of your everyday routine. I will discuss each technique. It is important to start with self-awareness. As an individual, you need to be aware of what situations causes you stress and what you enjoy doing. It is important to know your abilities and limitations. It will enable you to identify when something is troubling you and how to deal with it. One of the workshops that I do is on self-esteem and self-esteem development. In this workshop, I also focus on self-awareness. There are different activities that you can do to build your reserves in managing stress. That includes reading, listening to music, exercising, taking a walk, or meditation. You will be able to decide what works best for you. My experience is that meditation is a very important way of calming yourself down and finding focus. We are sometimes prone to overthinking, and meditation helps your mind to focus. Finding an activity or hobby that you enjoy doing is also a good way to relax. Lastly, if you do struggle to manage your stress, I would also suggest speaking to a professional or a therapist. It is sometimes good to get the view and guidance from an outsider or an objective person to assist you in managing your stress. In this slide, I'm going to focus on some techniques that you can implement in your own life to build your emotional, social, physical, and spiritual reserves so that you are better equipped to deal with everyday stress. It is important to note that these different techniques are not compulsory. You can decide what works for you. Let me start with the first group. Your supportive network is probably the most important part of managing stress in your life. It is important to connect with people in your life, friendship circle, life community, and work environment. This means that you do have to try to connect with people and develop your friendships. Two things that I would like to emphasize is first your social media time. Social media sometimes tend to disconnect us from the world and isolate us. So it is important to manage your social media time. I know some students take social media breaks, meaning 2 days in a week they do not go on social media at all. So it's very important to have your social support network in place so that when you do need to talk to someone, there is someone available. The second technique in this group is asking for help. As soon as you realize that you cannot manage your challenges, that you seek professional help or even asking for help from family or friends. It is sometimes beneficial to ask for a second opinion from someone else as they can give you a different view. The second group is managing your stress is going for a walk, eating well, and limiting your alcohol and stimulus intake. Sleep enough and do regular exercises. Improving your physical health is very important in managing stress. I will combine the third and fourth group as these different techniques focus on dealing with problems or specific challenges that you face in your life. It is important to learn time management skills. Many of us struggle with managing our time and planning our time. We need to learn to have a time schedule and a plan for our life. This is where goal setting and an action plan is of utmost importance. If you want to set some goals in your life, you are welcome to visit my office and we can then together come up with goals and a time schedule. Lastly, practicing visualization is a very effective way of putting your goals into action and visualizing what you want in your future to be. Sometimes we do feel overwhelmed by everyday responsibilities. In these situations, we need to learn relaxation techniques. Sometimes take a breather, practice meditation, write down our concerns, and lastly, think positively. As students, we do tend to focus just on our studies, but it is important to have a balance between our studies and our home. You are not just at university to increase your knowledge, but also to gain experience and discover and develop yourself. We need to live life and not study the whole time. The last category of stress management techniques is about having certain activities in your life that helps you calm and take your mind off the challenges you might face. I also suggest to students volunteering is a good way of taking the focus off your own problems and focusing on helping others. When we see that there are other people that might have more challenges than us, it gives us a perspective and insight. we realize that our problems might not be as bad as we think. I see many students that come into my office that are depressed and frustrated. They have come into university deciding that they are going to focus on their studies 100%. In the process, they do not do anything else or develop any of their talents or interests. I recommend that always have other things that you are interested in or other hobbies that you pursue that distract you from your studies and gives you balance. I always ask at this presentation which of the students have pets at home. Spending time with your pet or outdoors is a very effective way of dealing with stress in your life and taking some time to switch off from the everyday worries that we have. Just to summarize, it is important to look at these different stress management techniques and choose what fits best with your lifestyle, your time, your abilities, and your interest. It is important to have a balance between work and home. Your academics is very important while you are studying, but university is also an opportunity to develop yourself and your interest in other things. To improve and develop different skills that eventually, when you finish your studies, you are a well-balanced person that can be productive and can contribute not just to your work, but also to your work environment and the relationships in your community, in your life. So finally, it is important when you do have stress to be aware of it, to deal with it, and lastly, to have certain activities, things, interests in your life that you enjoy. We have come to the end of our presentation. This is just the information on how you can contact me. There's my contact details. I'm the social worker. My email address. Then you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and we have a WhatsApp channel, which is the Namibia University of Science and Technology Department Student Services. And then we also have a YouTube channel, Namibia University and Technology DSS. You can follow us on any of those social media platforms or the ones that you are on, and then you get information about activities in our department, as well as sometimes interesting clips that you can listen to that might inspire or learn you something. So you are very welcome to contact us, and if you want to come and speak to me a little bit more about my presentation, you are very welcome to make an appointment. Thank you very much for attending this and watching this video. I hope you have learned a lot.